Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk to you about sexuality being a spectrum. And this topic came to mind because, well, when I came out, I did definitely have a few people asking me, like, okay, you like women for now, but what if a few years down the line you realize you're not into women, or you're not just attracted to women? What if you like men too? Or what if you realize you only ever liked men? You know, these questions have been brought up to me, and I wanted to talk about this because I feel like a lot of people expect, or they think, sexuality to be a clear-cut definitive answer, like this person is straight, this person is gay, and there's like nothing else in between it, and that once you've figured out which end of the spectrum you're on, you have to stay in that side for the rest of your life, no questions asked. It's a definitive certainty. But that's not the case. In fact, that is exactly the opposite of what sexuality is actually like. And I say this because people realize things about their sexuality years into their life. Like, there are so many stories and instances of people finding out their sexuality while they were married, or, you know, they figure out later in life, or they realize that, hey, I've never had a partner before and maybe I don't want a partner. That's also part of the sexuality spectrum. And it's through finding out these things that we can really define ourselves. And just because you've defined yourself right now, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is what you have to identify as for the rest of eternity. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about that because it's something that I feel like not enough people understand. So I thought I'd discuss it with you guys. April came to join me. I splayed out my blanket thinking she would sit on it, but she didn't. She's literally sitting on the side where I haven't put the blanket. Sexuality is a spectrum. And by that, I purely mean that, you know, you have two sides of the spectrum. Like, you have, by spectrum, I mean that there are variations to sexuality. It's not a simple, I'm straight, I'm gay. A lot of times there are things in between as well. You know, sexualities in between, or even sexual preferences and things like that in between, just like gay and straight. And, you know, I'm still learning about sexuality as a spectrum. I'm still trying to understand it. But yeah, like, say for instance, there's a whole asexual spectrum as well, which, if you don't know what asexuals are pretty much people who don't have any sexual desire towards anyone, really. Like, they can have romantic intentions and want a romantic partner, but they don't necessarily have a sexual desire. They don't have a desire to have sex. Thus, they're asexual. But even in the asexual community, there is a spectrum to that as well. You have like demisexual and gray sexual. There are so many variations to sexuality that it's not just a, well, you're straight, I'm not, moving on. And in terms of people finding out their sexuality later in life, I feel like that has a lot to do with the environment that you grew up in, the education that you have, what was your family like, what was your upbringing like? Because, like, I don't have to look that far. I was just talking to my mom about this, and she said that when she was younger, words like gay and lesbian were not even around. Like, that, those weren't even words that she saw, let alone understood fully. Like, she knew that there were men who were attracted to men and women who were attracted to women, but it wasn't like a clear, oh yes, I know of that, because it just wasn't something that was as frequently spoken about, or as frequently discussed, or, you know, even openly shared in that point of time. And now that it's becoming a little bit more open and people are talking about it and people are accepting it, it's becoming easier for people to come out. I remember one time I was talking to this girl who I worked with. This was back when I worked in a cafe, and I came out to her and I told her that, you know, like, I'm a lesbian, blah blah blah. And the first thing she said, she was like, oh, that's cool, but do you know what I find weird? And I was like, what? And she's like, I don't understand why so many people are coming out all at the same time. Like, why is it becoming cool to come out? And I was like, sorry, what do you mean? What do you mean by that? And she's like, oh, I've just noticed, like, you're not the first person that I know who has come out to me. Like, I have a few friends who have come out to me, and I'm just realizing, like, why are you guys all coming out at the same time? And to that, I told her in the moment as well. I told her, well, I think people are feeling more comfortable coming out right now because whatever fear or inhibition that they had about it is disappearing due to acceptance and due to understanding and people being a bit more accepting of it. And you know, that kind of shut her up because she didn't really have a response to that. She just thought it was something that people just said to be cool, like, oh yeah, I'm gay, just to be cool. But that's not the case at all. A lot of times it's just, it feels like everyone's coming out at the same time because people are being more open about it. People have been coming out for centuries and we don't know about it because they will have come out to a few people and kept it pretty hidden. Whereas now when people come out, they come out a bit more openly because they're not as scared to come out openly, publicly. I mean, you can just use me for an example. Like, after I came out to my parents, I pretty much felt comfortable in coming out to everyone else because they were the two most important people who I needed them to know. So it was like, I needed my immediate family to know, and then everyone else can find out all together at once in a big whoop. If you haven't seen my coming out video, I'll be sure to link it in the description box below because it's definitely something that you should check out because that's pretty much what started this whole journey for me. And that being said, I came out kind of late. I guess you could call it late because, you know, like, even growing up in this environment and having supportive parents, it still took me 19 years to come out. You know what I mean? And that's what I mean. Like, you can't say that, oh, everyone's coming out, it's becoming such a, like, it's probably a trend, like, people think it's cool to be gay. Well, no, people are just coming out now because they feel comfortable to come out, whereas they previously didn't. And because of that new level of comfort, it feels like everyone's coming out when that's not necessarily the case. But yes, this whole idea of sexuality being on a spectrum, like, the reason I want to talk about this is because I want to tell people, friends, family of people who have come out as anything, as like bisexual, pansexual, lesbian, gay, or asexual, whatever. There's even a community called aromantics, which separate to asexual, it's the opposite. Whereas asexuals don't have sexual attraction, they can still desire and want a romantic relationship. Aromantics don't have that romantic desire, but they can still want and like desire sexual relationships. That's the differentiation between those two. If you know someone who has come out and then say maybe like 5-10 years down the line they come back to you and they say, hey, you know, I think I might identify as bisexual, whereas before they identified as gay, or, you know, they're like, oh, maybe I'm liking the opposite gender now, or you know how I was gay before, but like I think I'm liking, you know, I think I might be straight again. I feel like in those situations, you just need to accept the person fully because sexuality is fluid. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not set in stone. For some people, it's not fluid. Some people are very straight or they're very gay and that's it. Do you know what I mean? But it's not so easy for everyone else. Some people figure it out way later in life, like they might be married with kids and then they figure out that, oh, maybe I'm gay. And in those situations, that doesn't mean that they didn't love their previous partner. Sure, they might have still loved them, but right now they identify as gays. Thus, it doesn't diminish the love that they had for their opposite sex partner. It just means that this is where they're at currently. I feel like people just need to be accepting of these things, because so many people will mention it. So many people will be like, but wait, you're straight already? Like, didn't you just have a girlfriend? Or wait, you were straight, how come you're gay now? Like, these questions shouldn't be a thing, because we shouldn't be so heavily obsessed with people's sexuality, and we shouldn't be so obsessed with who they decide to sleep with. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's essentially what it is. Every time people start questioning these things, it feels like they're taking a unnecessary step into your personal private life, which it doesn't concern them. A lot of times I feel like people just need to understand that privacy is a thing. They should not be asking so many private questions so casually, or feeling like they have the right to do that. Like, it doesn't concern you. You don't need to ask these things. And just like that, it doesn't concern you whether someone who was previously straight is now coming out to you as gay, and then like 5 years down the line they're coming out as bisexual. It does not need to concern you, and it doesn't. You, as their friend or family member, you just have to be supportive and be like, I love you no matter what. You don't have to elicit judgment on them, because it's unnecessary. A lot of times people who figure out their sexuality later on in life, it's because they aren't educated on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, terms like asexual and, you know, aromantic and bisexual, pansexual, all these are sometimes really new for people. People just know that, oh, they're not fully straight and they're not fully gay, but they don't know where they fit in. And that's where learning things like this, learning these terms, learning that it is a spectrum is so helpful for so many people, because it gives them a sense of identity. And some people don't like labels, and some people don't like having that sense of identity. They just might say that they're queer and leave it at that. But for some, they find safety and comfort in having an identity. I know for me, after I came out, I felt so comfortable with that identity, because that was my true identity. And once I had picked it and claimed it, I felt so much better in and of myself. And I know that's the case for a lot of other people. But for some people, they like to just keep it open. They just say, yeah, I'm queer, and they leave it at that, because queer is an umbrella term for the whole LGBT community. And they don't necessarily identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, pansexual, or anything. They're queer. It is what it is. What I want to say about this is that people should just be accepting and understand that if someone at first has feelings for men and then they realize, wait, no, I actually have feelings for women, that there's nothing wrong with that. They're not being fickle-minded. They're not, you know, just experimenting. A lot of times people figure things out later in life, and that's totally okay. And a lot of times people think they are one thing, but they're actually not. And once they realize that, they're like, oh wait, I'm not actually that, I'm actually this. And that's okay. People need time and space, and, you know, they need some time to figure them out sometimes. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand, because they think, oh, now that she's gay, she can't be anything but gay. But that's not always the case. Or I've seen so many stories of women who were married, you know, with a full-blown husband, and then they come out to their husband like years after marriage being like, oh, I'm actually gay, and then they have to go their separate ways. It's a thing. People find out things later in life, and we shouldn't be judging them on their story. We should just be accepting, and, you know, we should be open to hear their stories and not judge. That's why I feel like parents should be a little bit open-minded if their son or daughter does come out, and if that coming out story changes, they should be open-minded as well. Basically, their main focus should be supporting their children. And if they have any questions, to ask their children. Because I feel like for me, after I came out, I thought I'd be getting bombarded with questions from friends, family, friends. But in reality, I had no questions asked. And it kind of makes me think, like, why aren't people asking me questions? Do they really have no questions? Do they not want to know anything? In fact, when people don't ask me questions about my sexuality, I actually get a little bit upset. I'm like, oh, I'm not saying all the time, but if I came out to you and I had, like, you had no idea, and I told you that, like, oh, I'm a lesbian, wouldn't you have some curiosities? Do you know what I mean? When people ask me no questions, I just kind of automatically assume that they just don't care, which is fine. But I don't read it as they don't care about the sexuality. I read it as they don't care about me, and they're not willing to learn about me or pay attention to me. That's how it sometimes comes off. So I feel like for people who are afraid to ask questions, please ask questions. A lot of times we want to answer your questions. We want questions. We want to help you understand things a little bit better. But yeah, so if you are somewhere on the LGBT spectrum and you're not certain about where you fit, or you're like, oh, you know, I came out as this, I can't possibly be that also. You can. Here's the thing, that's what I'm trying to say. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. You finding things out slowly because you're learning about them slowly. No one needs to know everything all in one go. No one can do that. That's like not even possible. You can't just learn everything in 1 second. Like, it's not like once I came out, I automatically knew everything I needed to know about the LGBTQ community in that 1 second. No, I'm still finding things out about the community that I had no idea about. A lot of times it's the other words, it's the other letters in the acronym where I'm like, oh, I didn't know we had that letter. What does that mean? Let me Google it. Or just me not knowing the difference between demisexual and gray sexual. Like, these are things that you just need to, it's okay to understand them later and find out later. And if you identify with them, that's great. I mean, that's what they're there for. And that being said, there are so many stories of people finding out that they're trans later on in life. And this is what I mean, like, sexuality and the gender spectrum is just that, a spectrum. You're not confined to any one label. That's just how it is. And that's why people who say that, oh, you know, but you were this, like, oh, but what about that time that you dated this guy? Or what about that time when you kissed him? Or this happened or that? Doesn't matter. It doesn't diminish your story. It doesn't, what was the word I'm trying to say? It doesn't, I can't think of the word. It's basically the opposite of validate. Like, it's not, there's no word as invalidate. Right, yes, it doesn't make your story invalid. It takes time. For some people, they need time to figure things out, whether that is dating people or having sex with people or whatever it takes for them to understand. Some people need that, others don't. I didn't need to sleep with a guy to understand my sexuality. Just my repulsion at the idea of sleeping with a man was enough for me to be like, hey, not every girl is repulsed by the idea of sleeping with a man. Why are you repulsed by that idea? And that was pretty easy for me to figure out. It's because I'm not attracted to men sexually. Do you know? But not everyone understands it like that. Some people understand it through having boyfriends, and sexuality is something that is fluid. So it can be evolving for a lot of people. It's fine. It is what it is. We just need to be accepting and open-minded. Maybe we'll learn something new. And even if we don't, that's fine too. We can just be accepting. Yeah, I basically just wanted to talk about that in case any of you are, you know, struggling with labeling your sexuality, or you're like, oh, I think I might be this, but I'm also a little bit of this. And I just want to let you know that that's okay. You don't need to put yourself in a box to feel like you don't need to fit in, essentially. You don't need to fit anyone's mold of what anything is. I know there are lots of terms in like the lesbian community as well. Like there's one term called gold star lesbian, where it's like a lesbian who has never slept with a man before. I feel like those terms are so damaging, because just because you've slept with a man, that doesn't make you any less of a lesbian. Do you know what I mean? Like it takes time for people to figure out sexuality, and it takes time for them to understand who they are truly, fully, and we shouldn't be shaming people for that. And instead, we should be celebrating it. When people do identify themselves as however they want to identify, we should be celebrating with them. We shouldn't be like, oh, well, that's weird, or oh, but remember that time you had a boyfriend, or remember that time you had a girlfriend. These are unnecessary comments that don't need to be made. We just need to be supportive. And yeah, so if you are someone who's struggling with finding out your sexuality or your gender identity, just know that it's okay. You can take your time. Please understand yourself. Take time to figure things out. Don't rush into things, and just make sure what you're doing is right by you. Don't be doing anything to please other people. Just do it because it feels right for you. I came out because it felt right for me. I didn't come out for anyone besides me. I came out for my personal comfort and my peace of mind, and so people knew my truth. But yeah, don't get forced into doing anything. Don't get forced into succumbing into something, or force yourself into fitting into another box. Just don't do it. Just be true to yourself. So yeah, that's it for this week's video. This topic was something that I had been meaning to talk about because it's been on my mind. Let me know whether you agree with my viewpoints or whether you disagree. Just anything. Just let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And yeah, I'll link my coming out video in the description box as well, in case any of you have not seen that. But yeah, as usual, my social media will be linked in the description box below as well, so be sure to follow me on those. And yeah, I think that's it for this week's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you aren't already subscribed. If you guys have any suggestions for other video ideas, please let me know in the comments down below. I do read all the comments, so yeah, if you have any video suggestions, let me know and I will take those into consideration. But yeah, that's it for this week's video. I'll see you guys all next time. Bye.